and welcome to SoulWhat, a SoulTopia podcast with our wonderful producer, Matt Stoker. I am your host, Michelle Welch.
And I'm Roger Welch. So what's up today, Michelle?
Well, we're really excited tonight to have Serena with us, and I know her by Serena, you guys, so I'm going to read her bio to you. But Serena Kumara is the founder of the Milk and Honey Project and co-host of Brunch and Boundaries podcast? But it's Brunch and Boundaries podcast. She curates experiences for women to understand, accept, and free themselves. Through her own journey, she discovered the importance of self-exploration, self-care, mental health, and spiritual health for creating a life she loved. Now she uses her own experiences, gifts, and education to support others on their journeys to healing and reaching their personal land of milk and honey. Hello.
Hey.
I'm glad you're finally here.
I'm excited to be here.
Yay. You know, people kind of, when we had, I will drop his name. When we had Matthew McConaughey on, people kind of got shuffled around. And people kind of got moved and shifted. So thank you for getting, I don't know if you're one of them, but it kind of had a domino effect. So, thank you.
It's all good.
It's all good. And it wasn't all his fault, but we've shifted some people and had to move. And then
Because we started talking about this months ago.
Yeah.
So
So thank you for being here.
thank you for having me.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. So, you want to start us off?
So tell us about your Milk and Honey project. Tell us what that is and everything you do.
Okay, so I curate experiences. So that is events, workshop series. I do one-on-one mentoring. That's really just about women connecting with themselves, getting to know who they are. So it's less self-improvement and more self-connection, because a lot of times we find that we are who we think we're supposed to be or who someone else says that we were. And so I do a lot of hands-on mind, body, spirit experiences. So, for instance, I'll have a mental health professional that'll come, and I'll have a Reiki therapist that'll come, and the women will be able to try different ways to get to know themselves.
So, are these mostly retreats? Are they meetings, or variety?
There's a variety. We have not done a retreat yet. That's next. We were on our way, and then COVID hit. So
Right. Well, I see it. Yeah, because it came out of my mouth, right? So, there you have it.
we're doing this today, huh?
Yeah. Retreats are coming, y'all. Get ready.
Exactly.
Yeah, but so we've had 2-day events before, but they'll just be you come and then you go home. And I would love to have a space where people can decompress, because we do a lot. We do a lot. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That would be really good.
Sounds like fun.
Well, you're not invited.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm singled out again.
Sorry.
I'll be sitting in the parking lot waiting on Michelle, I guess.
So tell me, you said, your experiences in the bio. So tell me exactly how that Milk and Honey project came about and how you founded that organization.
Okay. So, it's one of those serendipitous stories. It's just this thing happened and that thing happened. So I found myself in a space where I was looking to reconnect with myself. So I just looked up and I was like, I don't know who I am. And I did my year of whatever I want is what I call it. And I went to conferences and that's when I started coming to SoulTopia. And one of the conferences I went because I was going to reconnect with fashion, which is my background. And I was sitting there and it was a beautiful event. And I said, do I want to do this? Okay, maybe. But then I let it go. And then the next day I went to a screening of a documentary and all of these ideas started downloading. And then I went to a third event that was completely different. And it didn't have all the pomp and circumstance, but you were able to really do work and be reflective. And I said, if I could combine the fancy stuff that I enjoy with the real work, we got something. And so honestly, it was just things started lining up out of nowhere. I did sacred self-care was my first event in a little hotel suite, and it's been history since then.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Is this a for-profit or a non-profit?
It's a for-profit.
And we had this one time we met at, where were we? The coffee shop.
Oh,
It starts with an A, right?
it's not Ascension. I always want to call it that.
It feels like it, though. It feels like Ascension, doesn't it? We
It
were there.
does.
But it's not. That's the name. That's not the name of it. But it's in Addison. But it feels like it. Like you
Yes.
sit there and you feel like. And we were there for like 3 hours, and just talking and talking. And I don't go lunch for 3 hours, just so you know. But
You don't have time.
I posted one time. I don't lunch, y'all. Please don't be mad at me if you invite me to go to lunch, because that's just not my thing.
I can barely get her to go to lunch.
I just don't. But we did, and we were just like, we had a good time talking. And I remember asking you that question.
Yep.
And this is, and not that it needs to be one or the other. It's just that that's just something that usually I typically ask. What would, like, when you first started, like that first event, what demographic, age range, what type of women only, right, would come to your event?
It was really arranged, and I was surprised by that. So it was multicultural. It was varying age groups, but it was really women who were already doing pretty well, but just felt like something is missing a little bit. Yeah.
I am speaking this weekend at this thing called the World Spiritual Association. It's Tony Poulet. She's in, where is she? Germany? Germany. And I'm doing a metaphysical makeover. And some of it is the name of the speech from my book, The Magic of Connection. And some of it is one of the things that came out today when I was just sort of brainstorming with Ashley Daniels, was that when we get a makeover sometimes, it's not, if anybody makes somebody over, something you just said earlier made sense. It kind of tied into that. If they try to make somebody over and they totally redo that person to something they're not, it'll last for like a week. They do their hair a way that they're never going to do that. Or if they come in and they redo your house and then they go, this is all got to go, and they take that favorite chair and the decorator just says, all of what's you is going out the window. I'm putting all of me in there. It never works. And that's kind of sounds like what you're talking about. Like we're kind of programmed to think we need to be a certain way, or somebody tells us this is how we should be. And you're saying, I'm going to help people know that there's another way. We can find out who we really want to be.
Yeah, just wholeness and not perfection, and really connecting with who you actually are. I mean, that's just, sometimes there's this goal that we move towards, that our life is supposed to look like this, or we're supposed to behave that way. And it's funny that you mentioned a makeover, because I used to work in fashion. Right. And so I would style people. And one of the things was, people would ask questions about, well, what looks good? Well, what parts of you do you want to highlight? Right? What is your personal style? And I think I didn't make the connection until just now. So how that goes together.
Yeah, it does. And I made it today too. It was just kind of, and then I kind of thought about it. I thought, well, how do I tie metaphysical makeover? Because I liked that term. It's kind of catchy. And I thought, and we did it on the show one time. And it was more like, these are the crystals you need, which I'm going to do in that speech. But what I hadn't thought about, and I said the same thing as you. I said, we're not striving to be perfect. We're not going to be perfect. That's not what spiritualism really, to me, or spirituality really is. Yeah. It's not about being perfect. It's about just trying to connect with something in our purpose more every day.
Yes, because that's where you find your purpose, is when you get to know you.
Right.
Because you move towards things that look like the right thing to do, and you're not connected to them, that doesn't have the same impact as when you're called to do something. And because each of us have such a unique place in the world, you got to know who that is so you can do what that person's supposed to do.
I also think that's why sometimes people aren't in alignment, or they might not get along, because and that's okay sometimes. Oh my God. And what I will say, that doesn't mean you cut them out of your life all the time. It just means you're just not parallel, you're not aligned, because maybe their purpose is just not the same as yours.
Like, that really is.
Right.
But that also takes for you to get comfortable enough with yourself to not feel like that says something about your own value if maybe you don't realize that it's not in alignment, but the other person does. Or recognizing that you're not telling somebody else that they're not good enough by saying this doesn't work.
Right. And that's really hard. I mean, I'm really getting up there. And I still, yesterday I was like, on something, and then I realized it's okay that we're not on the same path on this. It's okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't even make one path right and one path wrong. It's just different.
That's exactly right.
And the reality of those people, those two opinions and views are just different if we really think about reality. But the thing about, like, yours, though, is not just spirit. It ends up being spirituality.
Because we're all spirits.
Right. And all this energy goes into spirituality, but you break it down to, like, life, right? And these, am I right? And,
Yeah. So I am spiritual, and I am in the sense that I care about your spirit, but it's not any particular faith, and I'm not trying to necessarily influence anybody. But I just feel like that's the core of who you are. But I also bring in other people that focus on your mind or your body, you know, different things that I don't know about, because we're trying to navigate life. Like, that's what we're here to do. And I think to tackle that first, before maybe we even try to elevate even higher than that, like, we got to figure out how we're going to navigate this plane right here.
I feel like I'm blocking you out of the conversation.
You pretty much are.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I am. Now that I look at it, I can see. Now let's turn to you.
So, with helping everybody, you know, kind of find their place and stuff like that. And I know you're dealing with a lot of different personalities there. And so sometimes, you know, personalities don't always click and stuff. And so it's like, and I can get it because, you know, sometimes it's like, oh, really? But then all of a sudden you had that one that's like, it's like, what the hell? I you know, I helped that person. You're like,
What do you mean you helped that person?
Like your project, you know, it actually really helped somebody change their life.
Oh, yeah.
You had that where, you know, it was like a wow factor where it really made that huge difference in somebody's overall, you know, yeah, there's little stuff, but I'm talking big stuff where it really helped out.
Well, I've had a few of those moments that come up. So the event that I did January of last year, Release Restore, that was really the first time that I started involving other professions. And I looked into the audience and I was getting to know the people, and there were mental health professionals and mentors and nonprofit people that run nonprofits. And that, when they left and they told me like what they took with them to their organizations, and like the therapists were there and what they took with them into their practices, that's when I felt like, okay, this is impact. Because if there's 20, 30 people in this room, but they all are touching 30 lives this week, then that's something that we're doing.
Yeah, that's a huge ripple effect.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So when we had that long conversation at Ascension, that's not really called Ascension. So no
It's
plug.
called, wait, Nikki knew, Astoria.
Astoria. So that's
Yes, 'cause we
Nikki or
went-
Mickey.
Nikki.
Nikki.
Because Nikki was
Astoria
yeah.
Coffee and Wine Bar.
Well,
Now,
Nikki-
Because we went
Nikki-
with
y'all
Mickey.
shut-
and
y'all
Wine
closed the
Bar
place
guys. So
down.
now we know why they were there 3 hours.
No. But yeah, they did have wine. I'm not
didn't
saying
even-
y'all did. I'm just saying they do have it there.
They do, but we didn't even have lunch. You and I just had coffee for 3 hours.
Boy, we had all kinds of ideas. If I had 3 hours of coffee, who knows what went down.
I don't even remember very
So it's
much.
Astoria?
Astoria.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Okay. Well, now known as Ascension.
Yeah.
I'm coughing again, so talk.
Okay. So
Here we
here's
go.
a drink.
Okay.
Oh.
It happens.
You get all choked up. It's
Yeah.
because she's close to me.
Because I'm starting talking about coffee. I mean, if I had 3 coffees, I'm dead.
Yeah. 3
So,
coffees. Yeah. So, what about your podcast?
Okay.
What all you talk about on there?
So, Brunch and Boundaries, I co-host with my friend Corey, who is also, she's a licensed therapist. And we talk about, like, we have a good time. We talk about pop culture. We have a lot of good laughs. But we really talk about living life and unlearning and the things that we've picked up on. We get pretty transparent and share lessons. And so this season, I really think the unofficial theme is unlearning. Just that realization of like all the things that we do and the fact that it's not really necessarily authentic. Like somebody somewhere told us that this is what we're supposed to do. Right. And so we talk about things, social justice, and we also talk about things like friendship, like navigating friendships in a healthy manner. We talk about, you know, your relationship with yourself, transition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So talking about that, being authentic and talking about and getting real. Now that I'm not like choking on the thing, I can talk. When we were at Astoria / Ascension forever, what I decided about you was a lot. But one thing is that you are a bridge builder. between, I think, communities. I think you bring a lot of people together. My best friend in the world met you and she is my best friend since our oldest children were like
Miss
born.
Judy?
Miss Judy. Judy Hagan. We have known each other for forever, okay? And she is as real as she comes across. There's no fake to that. And people through the years have thought, oh, she's just fake. That's a fake nice. No, she's that nice. And she fell in love with you. And she was just like, oh, and talked afterwards. And y'all hit it off.
I love her. Yeah.
There's an instant connection between you guys. And what I think, what I noticed about the way she is, because I know her so well, and the way you are, is you guys are, people would have used to use the term, you network. What I call that now is a connector of people, or like a bridge, where you bring people together. And that's kind of what you're saying you do with your organization. I'm going back to your organization, because if you're bringing these 501c3 people or these professionals in, or different people from different, you're connecting people from different areas that then take that knowledge out. And it feels to me like you, and I'm going to shoot straight, you can cross a lot of demographic boundaries. I mean, you just seem like you get along with most people. Am I right?
What's funny is I would say yes now, but it was not always like that,
Tell
which
me.
is why it's
Tell me.
being uncomfortable in your skin and being different, and an empath that doesn't know how to function, doesn't know how to navigate that whole thing. And I think I expected to be not not accepted for who I was. So you put the wall up, you put the shell up, and it's like, I'm not gonna like you first. And so what allowed me to be better to other people was when I began being better to myself, which is really a major part of the Milk and Honey Project.
Yeah. Well, it is high praise when my friend Judy singles someone out, because she likes it, pretty much gives everybody the benefit of the doubt. But when she just falls in love with somebody,
Which she loves me.
Everybody loves you,
She
Roger.
did from the minute she met Roger. But she just goes on and on. And it's the first time she had come in this store. Okay, so she, she supports me 100%. She loves me. We're best friends. But, and maybe she'd been in it one time. But she supports me, but she supported the book. And that's, when you do something like that, like when you, with your podcast, with your, your Milk and Honey, you find out real quickly, don't you? Especially when you begin to get successful, which you are, you find out real quickly who supports you, don't you?
Girl.
Can you talk about that a little bit? Let's be real. Let's be clear, authentic.
I mean, but
transparent.
I am going to be. That's why I laugh like that. I mean, what happens? I am a person that has felt drawn, like the forever student, and I still feel that way. But there's sort of seeing yourself here, and more people are up here, and I kind of struggled with that. And what I would do is attract people that wanted to identify themselves as my mentors, but really wanted to exploit me. And so I'm in this place now where I'm free of all of that, but that is more so what I have experienced than anything else, because that's another part of it. When you don't see yourself and who you really are, you become a target.
Yeah.
I know. Right?
Yep. It happens.
Yeah, it does. It does. And you have people who, I think there are certain people who really want to ride coattails or pull you off the chariot card of the tarot. They want it right on, or they want to yank you off that chariot. Or you have your champions who want to, run along beside you, cheering you on, but the in-betweens, there's not, I have found, there just aren't a whole lot. And my lesson over the past, how many years now with the store? 7, 8?
7, 8,
Time flies.
9.
It's been that, is to learn that balance and to learn it's okay, and I'm not being superior if I step up to be a leader. I'm not feeling I'm not
Yeah.
inferior. I'm not superior. I have so much to learn. I take classes all the time.
Yep.
But I'm always learning. But at the same time, to realize at some point you're stepping into that leadership role.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just interesting to watch. And then I assumed you've probably been through the same thing, to
Mm-hmm.
watch what happens with that dynamic.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to also teach the women that if one of their callings is to be somewhat of a leader, and we're all leaders of someone, whether it's our
Exactly.
children or whatever, we're, to know those boundaries and to know when, to watch for those certain pitfalls, I think.
And I think one thing that taught me is how I am now that I'm mentoring other people. Let's watch out for that. Am I starting to feel anything that's less than supportive? Let me work on whatever that is. Where do I feel inadequate? Because jealousy really has so little to do with the person that you're jealous of, like if anything at all. And
It's you. I mean, it's me.
it's
If I'm jealous, it's about me.
yeah, that's it. When I think about times in my life that I have been actually jealous, it only has to do with somebody is doing something. Like the most recent thing was before I really went full time with Milk and Honey Project. It was seeing other people doing it, going full time with their businesses, and I'd go straight into hater, and I'd have to get out of off the internet. And so then I was like, well, girl, if that's the problem, you can fix that. And now we're moving forward. Yeah.
Just do it. Yeah, and that is what it is a lot of times, I think. And I think I've always said this, even in relationships, I think probably the most cancerous, worst thing you can feel is jealousy. I think that's one of the worst. I don't know if it's a feeling or an emotion or whatever psychologists would call it, but I just call it, ugh, I don't want to feel it.
Well,
Right?
yeah.
I really do. I think it's one of the worst things you can
It's
you
the
can
worst
feel.
thing
I'm
you
not
can do.
judging it as being the worst. You're a bad person if
Yeah.
you're feeling it. I'm saying for myself, when I feel it, that is one of the worst things to feel.
Yeah.
And you're right. The way to get out of it is just to get out of the pity party and get up and do what it is you want to do.
Exactly,
And just
exactly.
get going with it.
That's really it. I mean, we had our show about friendship did have a lot to do with jealousy because it's such a normal, it's a human thing.
It's human.
And we don't need to demonize people who are feeling things that you also secretly feel. You just aren't telling anybody about it.
Yeah.
And the only way to face it is to acknowledge it. Doesn't mean you have to tell the world, but we got to get real with
So I
ourselves.
have a question for you.
Okay.
You hear this phrase a lot. There is no competition.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so I'm putting you on the spot because it's fun because you'll talk. You're real. I can do it with you. Okay, so do you believe that?
At my core, I do. That doesn't mean I remember it all the time.
So wait,
I forget.
say it again.
I said at my core, I know that to be true,
Okay.
but that doesn't mean I always remember that.
Okay, so what at your core, what do you think that means? There is no competition. Like, because that's a phrase people throw around a lot. There is no competition.
When you are in your lane, on your path, it's yours. Nobody can take it. If it's taken, it was not yours.
So it goes back to what we were just talking about too.
Yeah.
And it helps,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And I feel like the only person I'm really competitive with is myself because I'm really driven. So when I'm on that chariot,
So you're always playing golf.
not that kind of driven because
okay.
the golf club flies out of my hand.
Well, you're only playing against yourself, not other people.
The
so that's it.
golf club either, Matt, flies out of my hand because I don't know how to hold it properly and it just goes flying, or I have a little temper when it doesn't hit it right and then it goes flying out of my hand.
Into the lake because she's pissed off.
So there is a little competition when it comes to Michelle hitting a golf ball.
Let me just. If she,
I thought you were picking up a video.
let me show you.
let me just show you.
Michelle is so competitive with herself and actually with me. Don't let her kid you on that one. You know that game you play with the solo cups and the ping pong? Like you set the
Like
solo
beer
cups.
pong?
No, sort of, but you set the cups
no
around
beer.
around the house or like
Okay.
the kitchen or wherever, and you have to do trick shots, like bounce it off this wall, and then into the cup.
Oh, I'm not nearly that fun. I am not.
Like, yeah. all night long. She will play and
Really?
lose, but she'll play all night long.
I love games. I love sports. I like to win.
I'm not mad at that.
I mean, what's the point of playing if you're not, when people will play games and they're like, but why are we keeping score? I'm like, well, why aren't we playing if we're not keeping score? What's the point? So I don't know. I guess I just said I believe in competition, but with myself, because I like, to like have a point to the game.
Or at least try to beat me.
We are totally off the subject, but no, you end up winning. So I start off like kind of good at things. Like, it's like I kind of start off like scale of 1 to 10, 10 being, you're pro. I start off at about a 4 maybe at most things. Like just pick it up and maybe about 4. And I get up to about a 5. Now
That's the peak?
That's it's about a 5. And now Roger, he'll maybe start off at about a 2 because he's never played it before. And then we played it about 7 times and he's like up to an 8 or a 9. And I'm like, what the hell happened? Like I'm still at a 5 and I've been playing this for 10 years.
Because he detached from the outcome.
There you go. And you had to go all spiritual on me. But that is what happened. Because I'm like, Dad, I'm going to win this game. I am going to sink your battleship, right, Carla Nichols, if you're listening. Yeah. Well, we play Sink Your Battleship on our phones late at night.
She did beat me at that one the other day. But she did not beat me at Connect 4.
Oh.
So that's obviously, we're kind of joking about the competition, but that is one of those little phrases we hear a lot. And you hear, there is no competition. And then I start thinking, I really have thought about that one a lot. And I'm going to be honest, I've wavered back and forth about my answer. I think when we are in our superconscious or highest self, when we're in that state, there's no competition. But in my ego self, which your ego serves a purpose. Ego, you guys, is not always bad. But when you're in that state, because it can motivate you sometimes to get to where your ego can motivate you to kind of get going.
Yeah, that's true.
But when you're in your superconscious or highest, your higher self, there is no competition. And that I can buy. And I think it's where you're at, even at that given moment.
Yes.
Because you don't stay in superconscious all the time.
Yeah, that's from moment to moment. That's why we don't categorize folk. We don't call folk toxic because from moment to moment, we're in a different place.
That's like in my book. They were just talking about. So I eavesdropped on my book club the other night.
She waited till they were off and then went back and watched it.
I decided, well, just a little tiny bit, because I decided it was embarrassing to lead your own book club. So Tomas Frazier was reading it.
We'll leave that where it's at.
I was like, okay, well, it's my book. And I was like, okay, we'll have a book club. And I thought, oh, that's a little embarrassing. So Tomas is very good.
I love him.
I do too. And he's so smart and so much better at leading a book club, because me leading a book club turns into me going into teacher mode. Well, that's not a book club. A book club is, hey, let's discuss this. We don't want to listen to Michelle talk the whole time. And so he has discussion questions. It's very good. So I went back and just thought, well, I have it right here on the Zoom thing. And so now the gig is up. I listened a little, and just because I thought, I'm going to see. And they were into that whole thing about what I wrote about in the book about the toxic and relativity. How can you even label what's negative if, without comparison, you can't even label that.
Yeah.
And I talk about those laws a lot in the book, and it's true, right? You can't really label much of anything. And that's what you're talking about, of saying what we were conditioned to believe we're supposed to be, or this is how you're supposed to look good in the world, or this means success, or somebody told you, I know you're going to be Michelle a judge someday, or whatever. And then you have that on you your whole life, right?
Or even something negative, like the thing about like people don't like you. You don't get along with people. I think somebody told me that what is that when somebody either they really, really like you or they really, really don't? What is that called as a person?
A hater.
No. Well, you're one of those personalities that people either hate you or love you. And I think somebody said that to me, and I think I wore that.
I've heard that, but I can't remember now. I don't remember what the term is now, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but
No.
I let that shape me. And who was that person?
Yeah. shake that shit off.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
No, see, I see you as what I said, that connector.
See, I don't get that because from day one, you've been coming in the store. And from day one, it was always you hollering at me from the front to the back or whatever. And we just always hit it off. I never even thought of it any other.
Always
I've never seen
friendly.
you any other way than just positive and people
Friendly.
liking and friendly and stuff.
thank you. I appreciate
Yeah.
that. But I'm a whole human. So we've
Yeah.
got other sides too.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll just keep that outside.
Uh-huh.
the door. No, I'm kidding.
Exactly.
I'm playing. We want it all. We want to see it. Just directed at him.
I would never.
Because I'm really sensitive.
No, I'm not playing with Roger. I know better than that.
I would. Scorpio.
Right.
So, all right. So you, as I did up until a few months ago, you still have your mogul job. You're doing the podcast. You're doing your Milk and Honey project. What motivates you and keeps you going? Because that's a lot of time, a lot of hours put in every week to do all that stuff. So what motivates you?
It just doesn't feel right not to.
Okay.
It just felt like what I was supposed to do. And nothing feels like when you're walking in your purpose, nothing feels like that.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you agree?
Oh yeah,
would.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it felt good the day I gave up the mogul job and was here all the time.
Oh my gosh.
Have you looked? Well, you haven't. Have you looked back?
No, I talk to them, the guys every now and then, but they always ask me. Him, like my friend, he called me the other day from like 25 years ago, and he actually worked for me, but he stayed with the company after I left, and he's moved up to like a regional manager, and he called. He said, "Hey, I want you to come back to work for me." I was like, "Yeah, screw you."
Yeah.
Actually, that's the nice version of what I told him.
That sounds more on brand.
Michelle she'll punch me. I'm too close tonight. But yeah, I was like, no, I'm not going back.
No, you can't. Once you free yourself, you
It's
can't.
hard. Okay, so back. I keep going back to the Milk and Honey. So when you advertise these events you have, do you ever go into, say, corporations or law firms or businesses to do presentations for them?
So that's new. They're my private parties. Essentially just taking the experiences that we have and making them for their group. So it doesn't have to necessarily be corporations, but it would be like a girls' night if you want to do that.
Right.
Because I've noticed that sometimes people don't feel comfortable really going there with strangers. So that's definitely something on the website too. Yeah.
So sort of it could be a girls' night, but it could be like a team building.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
But it's a little deep for a team building.
a little deep.
We could talk about we can make it like specifically for what you want, but what's already on hand is a little deep.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting though, because it seems like it just would be I remember at the law firm we would have people in. Man, they made a living. They'd come in for our in-house, law firm stuff, and just for like 3 hours, there was one lady who was just teaching people manners because, geez, they didn't have them, and because you're taking clients out, and she was expensive, and just for 3 hours, or 4 hours, it was just this thing that people signed up. And I think they were required a certain level of associate. They were required to go to that. So I don't know. It just crossed my mind, But if it's different,
But that
teaching something. But it was sort of team building and sort of teaching.
But I could probably shape something for that because with what I do, I really don't want an audience of people where everybody doesn't really want to be there, and sometimes
so they can sign up.
Yeah. If it's like that, then we're good.
Yeah.
But when I don't want it because your boss told you to come.
Yeah. Might be interesting though.
You go to that meeting or else.
Go do a mirror activity with Serena.
I've been to some of those. Thank God for cell phones. Play some games.
No wonder you're here.
I was going to say, you're where you need to be.
He is. He is.
Happens.
Totally. So with the so when you go to your retreats, I'm just exploring all this. So when's your first retreat?
Girl, I don't know.
Okay.
Gotta get it
Wait.
out there.
Okay. We got to pick. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Fall time's coming up.
Okay.
Everything will be good.
Get it booked.
Hint,
Okay. You
hint,
think
hint.
September?
I'm feeling September, October.
Okay.
We got things in October.
Well, I know.
Oh, I
but
can't go anyway.
Yeah. So,
me feel
so you said you have had a Reiki professional or a Reiki healer practitioner.
Yeah.
Probably Reiki practitioners, what they probably call themselves. And you've had some nonprofit type of people. What else? Who else have you come in to have speak for you?
Therapists.
Therapists.
Yeah.
Okay, so pretty
Yeah.
much it's therapist or
Or someone that
a
does
healer type person.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the nonprofit people were attendees, so I haven't had anyone
Oh,
that
I
has
gotcha.
a,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
So that they can take it out. Like you
Yeah.
said.
Because
Spread it.
that's why I was so surprised by it when everybody in the audience had something, which it makes sense. When you want to better yourself, you share it. So
Right.
yeah.
Well, we're having on in, I can't remember the date, it's not in front of me right now, but Jan Langbein from Genesis is coming on in a couple of weeks from Genesis Women's Shelter.
Oh, wow.
And I've been very involved with them for a while. And, over Snowvid, their roof fell in.
I saw that.
Yeah, and so she's coming on in a couple of weeks. And then hopefully I'm wanting Roz Dawson, she's real busy, but from the Texas Women's Foundation, because they used to be on Dallas. They used to be Dallas Women's Foundation. I was on that board, so I'm hoping to get her to come on. And they're the ones who kind of give all the grants to the 501c3s. So that's why I'm always asking. And I think that's why I asked you before. Is that because I would be one of the people who'd go around and check out the 501c3s to see if they were
Like eligible.
if we were going to allocate money for them for the grant. So it's very interesting. Yeah. So what is a typical success story? I mean, it's kind of what Roger was getting at, but like you said, it's like when you aha moment kind of was when they take it out. But can you give us maybe like the first success story of one person?
First success.
Maybe not the first, but one that comes to mind that you were like, oh, wow, I really made a difference in one person's life.
Well, I had a conversation with somebody that I met about a year ago, and she said, your event is really what started like my healing and my self-love journey. I was just like, oh my gosh, that's so exciting. And it's been a year and she hasn't stopped. And even just speaking to her, being able to tell that she is more comfortable with herself, that's really the key, because whatever you decide to do, so long as it's authentic to you, I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's how we try to be at SoulTopia. We try to not push any belief system or any way of being. That's one thing we try to really emphasize here, that you don't have to be one way.
Well, it starts from the beginning because we let anybody and everybody be
Nobody's
accepted
excluded.
Here.
I have witnessed that for sure. And I've actually, that's the feedback I get, because you and I we haven't really talked in forever, but I continue to get positive feedback about people's experience in here and feeling like, oh, I just love it in there. That's what I always hear.
Well, good. If you don't hear that, let me know. That's what we strive for.
We try.
We try. But we are growing very fast. So it's very, And that's happening to you too. And as you grow, it's kind of like you're making those changes, those little adjustments to keep that feeling, to keep that engagement and to keep everybody just as happy, even though you're getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, to really keep the mission at the forefront.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's very hard to do. But what I was saying when I said I really don't ever want to put anybody in a box of what they have to believe when I was put in a box.
Yeah.
And I was. And not that there was any ill intent, really, but I was. And maybe I put myself in some of those boxes. But really, no, some were ingrained in me. They really were. And when you kind of start breaking out of those boxes, I always say a lot of times I will question a lot of things before I exchange one box for another condition box, belief. I'm going to really question. That's what my book is a lot about, is I'm going to question a lot of stuff before I take this one and I say, not all of that's working for me.
Yes.
And now I'm going to just accept this other one. That's why I ask those questions like, okay, is there competition or not? Because, we hear that all the time. There is no competition. Or, as above, so below. That's a lame one. But, there probably is some bit of that. But maybe it's side to side. It's swirly. I question
Okay.
everything because, and it's not because I'm trying to be a contrarian. It's more because I'm not going to just accept one thing for another.
We want a whole life. We want to be able to live a whole life.
And so that's what you're doing in a different, it's somewhat the same way, but with the people you work with. You're saying you have an opportunity to be who you want to be instead of who you were told to be or you thought you needed
Or
to
you
be.
were told not to be.
And you keep saying that, and you're right. I should say it that way too, and who you were told you couldn't be.
Because that's when we talk about people putting us in boxes, it's hard to teach freedom when you are unfree. And that is...
And thank you for correcting me on that, because I keep leaving that side of it off, and that's an important side.
Because so many people's experience it. People teach the people that they love and their children these things that they think will keep them safe, or they think that will have them live a good life because this is the right way to do it. And there is so much love behind it. And we really do talk about that a lot on the podcast, because me identifying that something that I was taught is no longer true to me, or I'm at least questioning, says nothing about the person who taught it to me.
Exactly. And I feel like I almost every time I bring it up, I disclaim it, because I don't ever want it to sound like, okay, that's attacking.
Well, and a lot of things, if you think about it, even times have changed, even 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years. So people that were raised, 40 years ago, their thought process of how this is where people should be, has changed over time. But they probably haven't adapted through. So they've taught their kids, or, you got to be like this, not realizing there's a whole, like my dad, my muggle job, I never drew an actual paycheck. I was always straight commission salesperson. My dad was always a salaried person. And so I had the worst job in the world, even though I probably made, my worst year probably still doubled what he ever made. But I had the worst job in the world because I didn't have an actual salary paycheck. I had, or, I was making commission.
I'd get it.
So, there's things like that. So, and I would think, and I know, because if somebody has had that kind of ingrained into them for so long, that's the tough one to get that person to open up to something new, or a new way to look at it.
Because imagine how that feels if you have been living a particular way because you feel like you have to find out you could have been living differently in a more free, fulfilled way this whole time. That's a lot for a person to process.
Yeah. I was just a little bit too rebellious about everything. Sorry.
No, you don't have to apologize to me. For me, it was raised to be extremely polite, very mannerly, so I didn't always tell people what I really thought, because I would be just extremely, miss manners. Now, I might not now. I was saying this on some show the other day. I was always given an Emily Post or Gloria Vanderbilt or Miss Manners every single Christmas. And at some point, somebody's like, and my mother's a wonderful person, and she is Miss Manners, okay? But they were like, by the time I was in college, they were like, oh, you're her, so-and-so's daughter? Because they knew, and Miss Junior League, Miss all these things. And I was like, they couldn't imagine it, because by that time, by law school, I was like, really? Did I have to write those 50 thank you notes, or something like that?
Girl.
But I was brought, and that's kind of a weak example, but I would really be polite to the point of, I think this was a conversation of, is this just people from what we would call the South, or, that just being Southern Belle or whatever is what they called it. And I don't know if Texas even counts in that. But they were wondering. It was just an interesting conversation on Facebook. And I said, yeah, I was taught to smile and put that sweet tea on it and then just walk away and go, can't stand her, But I would be completely, and finally around, I don't know, I don't know when I switched. I think it was sometime in high school. I said, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm just going to, I can have manners and still say, but I kept some of it because if something was going to hurt somebody to the core for no good reason, if they were ready to go out on a date and they had on a horrible dress, but they had no time to change and I had nothing to put on them, and they said, do I look good in this? I was not going to say, no, you look horrible, because there was nothing they could do about it.
That's
so those
right.
are certain things I was raised to just, you just say no. And there's certain things I was raised to just, that you don't tell people, and that you just aren't authentically blunt and rude on every single thing. But I kind of was raised to do it almost all the time, and to not always be honest.
It's funny because
I would hurt somebody's feelings.
I had sort of that experience. I did an etiquette class, but it wasn't to that degree of getting it all the time. But I've always been myself, so I just couldn't hold it in sometimes. And that's where that battle with who I was, because it felt so out of place. Because like we have manners, and we don't, we look a particular way. But I think another way that it affected me is it made me more judgmental. Because when you believe that your version of manners and your standard is like the right way, and to not respect someone in this way is like intentional disrespect, when a person who didn't have the same background as me came around, it would be like, they must be a bad person because they don't know how to,
They don't have that manner. That they're not doing it this way.
And it's not true.
Yeah, I agree with you totally. I totally agree. And so it's just a different way. Yeah. So that's a lot of stuff that I'm finally starting to kind of work on and realize, we don't have to, and relearning,
Unlearning and relearning.
Breaking it down and rebuilding it back up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's great what you're doing, and giving people, you'd think those are tools that people would get younger, and maybe they are getting them younger these days. Maybe there are more of those tools available. I don't know. But you would think by my age I would have had them, but no. And it really does play into your security and how you feel about yourself. Because if you're not being authentic, if you're not really being who you want to be and who you really were called to be, and if you're not aligned, and I'll use these terms, in alignment with your purpose, then truly you're not a real happy person. I wasn't.
I wasn't either.
Not joyful at all. And there's times now I struggle with joy. And a lot of times if I look at why am I not joyful, it's typically because I'm out of alignment with what and it's not even so much what I need to be doing, but what I'm kind of here to be doing. Yeah. And I just won't be in a space of joy. And I've been there lately, and it's because it was like just trying to do too many things that I thought were expected of me versus, okay, this is what I could be doing, and this would bring me joy, but it also bring Roger joy. Things would be better, And I think a lot of people struggle with that because that's the people pleaser thing.
Yeah, and which
a lot of us have.
We've just been taught. And that's not, I don't use words like all or most, but if I did, I would say most people have that experience. And
what's interesting is the people who say, I'm not a people pleaser, I will watch them sometimes and I'll think, okay.
Wait.
Self-reflection.
Okay.
Am I a people pleaser?
Yeah. Are you?
Because I don't think I am.
No.
Okay. Just making sure my,
But you're kind but you have a kind heart.
Yeah, but if I need to tell somebody to go F off, I will.
You will. But what I mean
Look,
by
not the smile.
With a smile.
What I mean by it is you're doing it for the right reason. Because when you're a people pleaser, when you're a people pleaser, you're not doing it to be kind to the other person.
That's right.
You're doing it.
It's not about them.
People pleaser, you're doing it because you want yourself to feel better. Your motivation is about yourself. It's completely self-motivated. It's not, if I'm being a people pleaser to you because I want you to like me, it's because I want you to like me. It's not because I want to be nice to Serena.
That's a word.
That is the way it is. And so you are a kind person. You may not be a people pleaser, but when you're kind to somebody, it's genuine. A people pleaser Doesn't make them a horrible person, but their motive often is self-motivated. Even though they don't realize it. Because I'm being a people pleaser because I don't want to deal with it. I don't want the fallout from it. I don't want her to be mad at me, and I want her to like me, and that's all me. It's not really about being kind to that person. So a people pleaser really is a selfish way to be. But in a way,
that's something else we talked about on the podcast. It is like a lot of things are two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
It's just about healing, though.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the reason why you feel like that. So it's not to hurt anybody, but you do have to look at yourself and say, this is not about this person. This is about what I'm going to get out of being liked, or having them come, to my store if we're talking about that, or to my event or whatever.
Exactly. And then, like you said, not being attached to that outcome. Once you let go of being attached to that outcome. And I'll tell readers that here, I finally did buy into that. Because I used to be like, and he'll bring it up, and he's looking at me like, no, you haven't. But I have, because I've handed off a lot of my clients to readers here. And every now and then I'll go, and but even when you read, you can't be, if you're not attached to the outcome, it doesn't really bother you. And if you're not attached to how many people are coming, all of a sudden, your schedule fills up. And that's what I try to teach. I do really believe in that kind of being not attached to that outcome. That was another one, right? I would question that one again. I'd be like, well, of course you should be attached to the outcome. You should have goals. You should have, and I do believe in manifesting. But then I believe in saying, okay, now I trust.
Yes. Lesson I get better and better and better at it, but that's it.
and that's that backward and forward thing.
Oh, yeah.
We're never going to just arrive until we ascend out of here, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Let's see. How are we doing on time?
Oh, we're probably